Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited today to have Jenny Berman as my guest. She is the owner of Berman Health and Wellness and has a team of registered dietitians and nurse practitioners and PAs working with her. The team is the best at helping individuals to reach their goal weight and optimize their gut health while avoiding needless medications and achieving the highest quality of life imaginable. This functional medicine practice is based in Naples, Florida, and is helping individuals with weight management, gut health, autoimmune disease, and hormone balance. She focuses on treating problems, not symptoms. Jenny is a physician assistant certified and is also a certified fertility specialist, certified nutrition specialist, and certified personal trainer. She was trained by the Institute of Functional Medicine board-certified physician Dr. Carolyn Cedarquist in Naples, Florida, and Jenny earned her degrees from the University of Florida and Nova Southeastern University. She is currently a fellow with the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, A4M, and her passion is helping one more individual to add quality years to their life. So welcome, Jenny. How are you today?
Thank you so much. What a great intro.
Yeah. You definitely have an amazing background, and we've worked together for a while now. You've done a lot of writing for my magazine, Essential Naples, down here in Naples, Florida. But I think what I try to do with these interviews is really help my listeners get to know who you are as a person and why you started, this practice. Like a lot of natural health providers have had different types of things happen to them in their life that kind of led them down, this journey to becoming the practitioner that they are and the work that they do. So how did you come about functional medicine and get involved in all this?
That's great. And yes, I totally agree with you that a lot of us in medicine end up in medicine for one reason or another, usually for something personal or family related. And I started on the track of getting a physician assistant degree and going out into orthopedics. I thought that's where I wanted to be because of my own history growing up, being a gymnast and having repetitive injuries and countless casts and all sorts of physical therapy. I thought orthopedics, specifically pediatric orthopedics, is where I wanted to be. So I got in the field and I absolutely loved it, though the lifestyle was not what I was anticipating as a new grad, young female that had not started a family yet. But while I was going through this and even going through PA school, I actually started having some of my own health concerns and was seeing Western medicine doctors from the year prior to graduating to PA school until, 2 years into my career postgraduate. I was being bounced from doctor to doctor to doctor for various symptoms that I was having. And so to go a little bit deeper on that, it started out in PA school that my liver enzymes were extremely elevated, which they found off of just regular blood testing that I had done during school, my regular annual exam. And shortly after that, I started having significant GI upset. So I was having very loose stool, bloating, abdominal pain. And it got to the point where I was severely dehydrated and ended up in the hospital actually on a day that I had to present my final thesis in school. And so I was kicking and screaming, telling my mom and my boyfriend, who's now my husband, but boyfriend at the time, I cannot go to the hospital. I have to go to school and present my thesis. I have to graduate. And they're like, you don't really have a choice. Like my lips were bleeding because I was
Oh God.
dehydrated and, you know, couldn't couldn't retain any food essentially. So again, I ended up in the hospital, spent 3 days there, wasn't getting any answers, got out, was bounced from one GI to the next to the next. And I dealt with this for essentially 5 years.
Wow.
I did end up presenting my thesis and graduating PA school, got married, moved to Naples, and I was still just in this realm of trying to figure out something to at least stabilize me. So moving forward from that, I finally got to a point where I essentially was stable. I was able to go to work and not spend, hours in the bathroom to make it sound really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but at the end of the day, I was taking 24 pills a day to be able to be stabilized. And my husband, through this, he was working with a GI doctor at the time. He's a physical therapist and was working with a GI doctor and was talking to him about my scenario, my history, and the fact that I was on these 24 pills. And he said, so how long is she going to have to stay on these?
Yeah, that's
And
not sustainable.
no, especially, at the time, I was 25 years old.
Mm.
And he told Jake forever. And he's like, so my very healthy 25, otherwise healthy 25-year-old wife is going to have to stay on 24 pills forever just to stay out of the bathroom consistently. And he said, yes. And this was after I had had multiple scans, colonoscopies. I mean, the whole thing, the whole workup. And that's where we decided that that wasn't the answer. And Western medicine wasn't giving us what we needed. And so we had to start doing something differently. And we started reading books. And we actually read The Grain Brain by Dr. Perlmutter. And that was the start to this journey down functional medicine. So taking it a step further, we were in Naples, and that's where I connected with Dr. Carolyn Cedarquist, who is an Institute of Functional Medicine trained, board certified physician. And she really opened up my eyes even further to functional medicine and gut health and food sensitivities and allergies. And through all the testing with her and the food elimination and the gut healing, I started thinking back and told my family, I said, I've really had food sensitivities forever. I had eczema as a kid, psoriasis, I had asthma as a kid. When I got into high school, I had severe seborrheic dermatitis, which is like psoriasis of the scalp. I was on oral steroids at one point at 16 years old for psoriasis. And I got to thinking, like, but nobody knew at that point that it was related to gluten and to dairy, which is where we're at now. So this journey of taking medicines and being bounced from one doctor to the next and being told at 25 years old that I was going to have to take 24 pills for the rest of my life is really what got me on this path, this journey of functional medicine. And, through this and the what occurred with me and how much healing I had just from changing my meal plan, just from changing the foods that were coming into my system, being able to come off of every medicine. I really was passionate about it. And that's where I said, I have to change. I have to help that one person like me that's out there struggling. And ended up working with Dr. Cedarquist after that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, when I hear these stories, the thing that keeps popping up for me is, oh my gosh, it's so sad that people have to go through all of this with traditional medicine to finally, you know, figure out that that route is not going to help them. I mean, traditional medicine's great for acute situations, you got to go to the
Absolutely.
hospital, you break your leg, whatever, that kind of thing. But when you talk about things like food sensitivities or gut health or, a lot of different issues that are more chronic, it really should be that functional medicine, integrative, medicine is the first place people go. And then if let's just say they need a prescription, that's like way down on the list. And
Right.
it's just, I mean, I think it's changing a little bit, but I feel like so many people just are not aware of all, the like things that you as a practitioner do that could help them avoid, all the years of having to be bounced around like you were.
Right, right. And you're absolutely right. Western or traditional medicine is fantastic in many areas, and for many reasons. 100% I still believe in it. I'll still recommend it for certain individuals. But like you said, the functional or integrative medicine isn't talked about enough. And our clients now, so fast forward from working with Dr. Cedarquist, I was with her for over 3 years before I opened up my own practice of Berman Health and Wellness down in Naples, where we're continuing to do the functional and integrative type medicine. And clients will ask me, well, why hasn't anybody ever talked to me about this? Why hasn't my regular doctor looked at these blood tests or talked about the dietary changes? And to just touch a little bit more on functional medicine, it's not just about gut health. That's a huge part of it. But as you mentioned in the bio, the weight management, the insulin resistance, diabetes, the hormone imbalances. So, these women are like, oh, I have postmenopausal symptoms, or my hormones are terrible. I have to go on hormone replacement. Well, there might be alternative options to that.
Yeah, it really is amazing how much can be solved with just food, with literally just changing your diet, some supplementation, figuring out what your food sensitivities are and eliminating those things. And I think people, it's not to say that you're not ever going to be able to eat that food again. I mean, there may be some situations where, yes, you really can't, but a
Hmm.
lot of people I know have been able to introduce things back into their diet. And so I want to also kind of dispel that myth that, don't feel like, oh my gosh, if they tell me I can't have, XYZ, I'm never going to be able to have it again. Sometimes it's just a sensitivity that you've developed because you've been eating too much of it for too long. And if you reduce it and kind of eliminate it for a while, you can introduce those foods back in for sure. So this is really, really fascinating. We're going to get into a lot more information with you, Jenny. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will explore more about functional medicine with Jenny Berman, owner of Berman Health and Wellness. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or at either of my two publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Jenny Berman at www.bermanpt.com/wellness. That's BERMAN P as in Paul, T as in Tom.com/wellness. So welcome back, Jenny. We were talking about just your journey to discovering functional medicine and all the things that you kind of had to go through before you found this path. And I think that that term functional medicine is becoming more and more common and, thrown around a little bit more. And I want to know what your definition of that is, because I think some people still are not sure, like, what does functional medicine really mean? Like, what do you do in your field of medicine?
Absolutely. So, in simple terms, what I tell people is we treat problems and not symptoms. So, you're coming to us to identify, why are you feeling the way you're feeling? Why do you have the fatigue, the headaches, the weight gain, the poor sleep, the eczema, psoriasis, migraines, whatever the symptom you're experiencing? Why is that happening? And how can we treat the problem that's causing that symptom, as opposed to just giving you a prescription medicine and saying, here, go take this for your headaches that you're having. Another way to look at it with functional medicine is alternative medicine. Some people think holistic, quote, and I'll put quotes around holistic, because we're not just straight herbs with our type of medicine. We like to do nutrition based, looking at your gut health. If we need to utilize supplements or prescriptions, we have that ability, but that's not our first line therapy. We really want to treat the body from the inside out when it comes to that quote unquote functional or alternative medicine.
Yeah, I love that. I think the key takeaway from that is when people come see you, you're getting to trying to get to the bottom of what is the root cause of these things? Like, why are you having these symptoms? Not, oh, you're having a headache, so let's put you on this prescription. Or, you're having, I don't know your cholesterol's high, so let's put you on this prescription or whatever, like these drugs that are all kind of band-aids. You're really trying to get to the bottom of, well, let's figure out why you're having this symptom. And if we get to that and we fix that, the symptom goes away.
Correct. That's exactly right. It's something as simple as you said as cholesterol, and everybody, not everybody, many think, well, it's a normal part of aging, or my family had it. My mom had high cholesterol, my dad did, my brother does. So, I just have to go on cholesterol medicine. That's just life. And it's not. And the same thing for, oh, my mom had hypothyroidism, or my grandmother had a heart attack, so I'm probably going to have heart disease. And the thing we have to remember is we have genes, but we have the ability to turn these genes on and off based off of our insides, our gut health, and our environment. So we have to understand that this is not a normal part of aging. Taking hormone replacement, having bad sleep when we go through postmenopause, having that 10 to 15 pounds in the abdominal area, that is not normal. That is a symptom of something else, of a problem. So we really have to identify, where is that problem coming from? How do we reverse it? What is causing the inflammation that's increasing your cholesterol? What is causing your sleep issue? And most of the time it's a blood sugar issue or a cortisol, that stress hormone issue, as our body does go through that hormonal change. So being able to really look deeper into your body from the inside out based on blood testing, your dietary plan, your medical history is going to be the key factor to treating you as an individual, and not what the rest of the population is doing.
Yeah, I think it's important also for people to know that, like you said, genes are not the be all end all. I mean, there's actually been studies on identical twins, and one develops a chronic disease and one doesn't. So we know there from those types of things that that's not, the sentence for you. Like,
Right.
yes, you may be predisposed to certain things, but depending on what you do in your diet, your lifestyle, whether or not you exercise, whether or not you smoke, how much alcohol you consume, like all these things, the amount of toxins, like you said, are going to turn these genes on or off, which really is why we go down that path to disease, not just because we have the gene.
Correct. That's exactly it. And there's that new Netflix series out now, You Are What You Eat. I don't know if
Yep.
you've heard of it or
Yeah.
seen
Yep.
it, but that's the new talk. And it's just as you said, there's twins in that series where they put them on different meal plans. They have the same DNA, put them on two different types of meal plans, and one goes down one path of disease and the other one doesn't. So it really shows, again, like you just said, that the nutrition is such a big part of why we start to develop these deficiencies or autoimmune diseases. And the other part of it is our vitamin deficiencies. So depending on, again, the gut health and our nutrition and our insides, we can be deficient in certain vitamins, which is going to increase our risk for certain diseases like the high blood sugar, the migraines, the poor sleep that we have, the hypercholesterol, so high cholesterol values.
Yeah, that is really important. And I also want to point out that it's, the quality of the supplement that you're taking is really important, because I think
Mhm.
some people still think, well, I'll just go down to Walmart or whatever and I'll get my omega-3 or whatever, my multivitamin or whatever. And really, you do get what you pay for in the whole supplement world for sure. And so, I have worked with people who have been on what I'll call crappy supplements.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, nothing changed, it didn't help me, nothing changed. I'm like, well, that's because think of it like just the type of food that you're eating. I mean, you have to have a really high quality. To me, it's like get your supplement from your provider, because they're the ones who've done their due diligence in terms of finding different companies that they trust and what they think that works best. So it is important where you get your supplements from.
Well, definitely. The brand or how they're manufactured will affect not only the absorption, but some of these vitamins that you'll find over the counter at, your typical drugstore will have added ingredients into them. So they'll contain gluten or they'll contain dairy or even worse is vegetable oils that are put into these supplements, and those are inflammatory by itself. So you think you're doing something good for your body when really these certain supplements are causing more inflammation. And it's interesting, I was just having a conversation this morning with my husband, who again's a PT and a business owner also, but we carry a certain line of supplements in our office right now, and they got bought by a corporate company. And we were just discussing how many supplement lines that you think are good supplements are being bought by big corporate companies like Clorox.
Hmm.
Clorox owns a supplement company. And I was like, wait, what? Like, that's
Yep.
just not even optimal. So we're actually in our practice transitioning to a privately owned supplement company back to a privately owned, because one we were on was until they just, sold to a corporate. So yeah, you have to be very careful about that.
And all, yeah, all that stuff that goes on behind the scenes that the general, layperson doesn't even know about for sure,
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it is kind of crazy. It's all about the money now. These big companies are like, oh, let's purchase a supplement company. We can add more billions of dollars to our bottom line.
Right, right.
So, I mentioned in your bio that you're also a certified functional fertility specialist. What does that mean?
Good question. So I myself had a history of infertility. So again, before we finally figured out all of the gut health issues, I said it took 5 years, and we went through two fertility specialists and used infertility drugs for about 4 years before I ended up finally getting pregnant on my own, to have babies. So, and we had several miscarriages before that happened as well. So again, I went down this path of nobody should have to go through what the 4 year roller coaster that we just went through between losing babies and taking all these medicines and going to the doctor every other day, to find out that my gut health was a huge impact to that experience that I had. So again, just became passionate about it. And through the A4M, who I'm now doing a fellowship with, I actually went through a certification to be a certified fertility specialist. So it's more looking at infertility and fertility from a functional standpoint, looking at it from this nutrition based medicine and natural approaches, how we can reduce the toxins in our body from our foods and from the environment to improve our hormone levels and improve the ability to hold a healthy, growing fetus for these women.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, it's tough enough as it is, I think, with all of the stress, just trying to, decide that you're going to start a family and all that. And then it takes, the time that it takes, and then all of the struggles that you've been through for sure. I mean, there's definitely, you're actually I know a couple of naturopaths who specialize in that, but I think you're actually this is the first time I've heard of functional fertility specialists, like they're actually offering a certification for that. So I think that's awesome because that's really needed.
Oh, thank you. I loved it. And now am trying to pass this information along to my team as well, so that we can continue to help more women out there so they don't have to feel stuck in this world of infertility and seeing fertility specialists. It really, it all comes down to what's going on inside of your body. We can't treat every single person with infertility the same way, which is kind of what happens when you go into this field of seeing a fertility specialist.
Yeah, a lot of the things I've talked about with the naturopaths that I know that happen to be up in Connecticut that do infertility work is even just, it's one thing to deal with the hormones and things like that that you have in your body that might be not working with you, but it's also like all these toxins in the environment now that are causing infertility and all that stuff. So that's really, really important to know. So we're going to talk more about this. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll be talking more about functional medicine with Jenny Berman. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Jenny Berman, and you can learn more about her at www.bermanpt.com/wellness. That's BERMAN, P as in Paul, T as in Tom.com/wellness. So just before this last break, we were talking about infertility and all the things that, could be causes of that. And I know we typically, as we were on break, Jenny, you mentioned like we should talk about the fact that it's, we look at men as well, because I think a lot of times the infertility focus is always on the female, right?
Right, right. And, being a female going through it, you feel so much guilt and pressure that it's all on you. But a lot of times that has to do with the male as well. And so through that certification that I was able to obtain, we had a whole entire day talking about male infertility and the fact that we have to treat both parties. We can't just treat one. And so, sure, we have more females than males that come to us for fertility help, but at the same time, we're educating the female that we're seeing on things to relate to the husband or partner, to help with his aspect too. But a lot of times we'll recommend getting blood testing on both so we can make sure that we're doing everything we can.
Yeah, which totally makes sense. I mean, when you really look at it, it is a 50-50 thing,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Right. So I think it's, it's kind of funny that for years there was really not that much focus on men, like, oh, it can't be their problem.
Right, right. And it
And
comes
it could
down to
be.
even simple things like holding their phone in their front pocket. Like that can reduce the ability for, pregnancy to happen. So, yeah,
Or even just stress. I mean,
right.
that's a huge thing. I can't tell you how
Absolutely.
many times, and I think you even alluded to it yourself, that people um got to the point where, I mean, you didn't adopt, but I know so many people that adopted because they could not have a child, because and once they did that, then they got pregnant naturally. It's like, okay,
It is
you can't make me believe that that wasn't like that stress didn't have a major thing to do with that.
is so interesting that you're saying that. We had gotten to that point. We were at the point of, we had lost several, we had done IUI, we were at the point that it was okay, we're either going to adopt or we're going to go to IVF because they really cost the same amount of money. And not that it's about the money, but through adoption, not only are we helping somebody else, another family, a baby, but we also were at that point essentially guaranteed to get a baby versus we weren't going through IVF. So we actually went through the process. We applied for the adoption, we did the home inspection, and a month later, I got pregnant. And so, we have not gotten rid of the idea of adoption, because it's still a challenge to be able to get pregnant and hold a pregnancy once you do have that autoimmune. You're always treating it, and we would always love to be able to adopt and help somebody else. So that card's not off the table. But to come back to what you're saying is, I was just like, okay, I threw my hands up in the air. We did the home inspection, like we're ready, we're on the list. Stress had been lifted, and there we go. So
Yep. Yep.
it absolutely is a big part of it. And there's a pathophysiology to that. There's a reason that stress affects our hormones and the ability, but that's a whole nother talk radio.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that is a whole nother transformation talk radio show for sure. And I was gonna say, and this is another show for sure, there's also like a whole spiritual component like behind it as well. If if you've ever heard of people talk about how they had, some type of chronic disease, or they had cancer or whatever, and when they finally, just like you said, like threw their hands up in the air, we're like, okay, I'm accepting this. This is my journey, my path, whatever. All of a sudden, whatever it is, the issue goes away. It's like, wow, I mean, that's pretty impactful in terms of, understanding how much just your head space and stress and all of that plays a role in all these things from a negative perspective.
It is. And we talk about that in our practice with the clients we see almost every day that, the cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is one of the tests that we check in every single client, or recommend that we check. If you tell us you don't want blood work, we don't do it, but we recommend checking a cortisol in every single client because of the impact that cortisol, that stress hormone, has on every aspect of our body, every autoimmune disease, every weight gain, sleep inabilities, migraines, headaches, fatigue, cravings. That stress hormone, that cortisol, is a huge factor when it comes to reversing all of these symptoms or diseases that our clients are coming in with. There was one study showing that stress causes is 97% of the time the cause of 97% of diseases that we're diagnosed with, whether that
Wow.
is cancer, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, um, mental health disorders, autoimmune, 97% of the time for 97% of the diagnoses that are out there
Isn't that crazy?
is stress.
I mean,
And, and I'll say one more thing though. The stress doesn't have to be the outside stress. It doesn't have to be the fact that you're a mom or a wife or a husband or a business owner. It's internal stress too. So these vitamin deficiencies, the food sensitivity, is not getting the optimal nutrition through your food as well.
yep. Yep. Yeah. It's interesting when you talk to, people who, like, for example, my mom who's 89, and just the way that she grew up, like how she grew up. And she does actually take some vitamins now. She's finally come over to the dark side with me, but she was like for a long time didn't understand. She's like, I don't understand, like, why you should be able to get everything you need from food, and I eat all different kinds of foods and whatever. I'm like, you don't understand that, like, you didn't have to live through all the processed stuff that we did. And I'm at least 20 years older than you. Like, even I had to live through less of it than you did. So
Right,
I feel like
right,
women that are now in their 20s and 30s are, dealing more with infertility and more of these chronic diseases and things like that you went through. And people might be like, oh my God, she's so young. Why does she have all those issues? Well,
right.
I mean, look at the environment that we're in. It's just so much more toxic and more processed, and things that we have to deal with, whether we're eating, breathing, drinking, whatever it is.
Right, right. And you're absolutely right. That's the same thing we'll get from clients is, well, I never had a gluten allergy before. Why do I have it now? Or I never had blood sugar issues 10 years ago. Why? And I don't eat any different now than I did 10 years ago. Why is this happening? And there's two reasons. One, our hormones change, which change the way that we're able to metabolize different foods and sugars and carbohydrates. But two, the amount of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, that are in our foods, the amount of processing that's occurring through our gluten and our wheats, through the dairies, to be able to mass produce or to extend the shelf lives.
Ah, yeah, totally, totally. Um, So I think it is just so interesting just to, talk about how things have changed over time, and all that, and how we have to look at things differently, and, treat things differently. What kinds of things are you seeing in your practice now? Like, what typically is the issue that most or more people are coming to you for?
It's great. So when I first started my practice back in 2020, we were primarily a weight management. So we treated a lot of individuals who wanted to lose weight or had pre-diabetes or diabetes, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. So it was primarily revolved around weight when I first started. But now that, from my own personal journey, and now that gut health is becoming so much more popular and people are hearing more about it, we've really shifted to probably 60% of our practice being more revolving around gut health and autoimmune disease. So, again, going back to some of the things I've already listed, but the skin disorders, the migraines and headaches, the sleep concerns, low energy levels, Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid disease, arthritis, joint pain, fertility. We've really shifted into more of that autoimmune world. though we still treat everybody with the nutrition changes. So we have to get down to your macronutrients, meaning your proteins, your carbs, your fats, what types of foods you're eating, what is right for your body versus not, your vitamin levels. So even if they are coming in for gut health or they are coming in for weight management, we're still covering all the bases.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, well, all those things you're saying, high stress, lack of sleep,
Mhm.
many of the things you listed are the reasons why people probably gain weight,
Right,
right? Like the
right,
gaining weight is more of like the symptom.
correct.
And it's
You
trying to
got it.
figure out like, oh, well, why is this happening? It shouldn't just like you were saying earlier, oh, we just say, well, I'm getting older, so this is what's going to happen. No, you shouldn't necessarily have all these issues or even gain weight as you get older, unless you
Right,
become more and more sedentary.
right.
But yeah.
That's exactly it. You hit it on the nail, the that we have to look at the hormonal changes that are happening. And yes, we can't prevent the hormones from changing, right? As we age, the women's hormones change, the male hormones change. But what the problem is how we react to that. So our ability to break down food, our ability to process foods, our ability to maintain our vitamin levels. And that again is really what we need to be targeting in order to prevent that part of the weight gain or the headaches or the sleep issues happening.
So I think what's awesome, I just want to mention this quick before we go to another break, is that when people come to see you, I mean, from what I'm hearing, the comprehensiveness of what you do is amazing. I mean, versus like you go to your traditional medical person, you probably aren't even going to see the doctor. You might see like an APRN or a nurse practitioner or whatever. They're going to spend 15 minutes with you, maybe, and probably just
Right.
write you a prescription. Whereas with you guys, it's like, wow, I mean, it's a lot of comprehensive work and discussion and testing and all that kind of thing. So I want to touch on that when we come back. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about functional medicine with Jenny Berman, owner of Berman Health and Wellness. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. You can learn more about me at www.drdianehayden.com. And I'm talking today with Jenny Berman. You can learn more about her at www.bermanpt.com/wellness. That's BERMAN, P as in Paul, T as in Tom.com/wellness. So before we broke, we were talking about, just the comprehensiveness of your practice, Jenny, when you see a new patient, all of the things that you do for them. So kind of walk me through, like, let's say I'm a new patient coming to you for the first time, and I know it's different based on, what are my health issues? What am I presenting with, that kind of thing. But in general, what would someone expect by becoming a patient of yours?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we start off by seeing the patient for the first initial consultation for an hour, going through their very in-depth medical history from being very young to where they're at now, what their goals are, medicines, etc. A lot of individuals will be like, I have never told a doctor this much information in an hour ever, but that information, as long as they're open to giving it to us, is really important for us to navigate where we're going to go on their health journey to reach the goals they want to reach. So going through that very detailed medical history is important, reviewing any blood testing that they've already had done. But from there, we'll generally recommend doing our panel of blood testing, which is certainly more in depth than we generally get at a physical exam every year by our primary cares. And we decide on what blood testing our clients need based on their goals and their history. So in addition to our normal plan as far as blood work goes, where we generally will check about 13 blood tests, if there's anything additional we need to do, food sensitivity testing, stool testing, micronutrient testing, we have the ability to do it, but we won't do it on everyone if they don't need it. And after that, our clients will work with us on a weekly basis, working with our dietary team. So you mentioned we have two registered dietitians. So they will work with the dietary team and the medical team, so the PA or the nurse practitioner as well, to really navigate through this health journey, figuring out what foods are exactly right for them, what their fuel is going to look like as far as how much protein, how many carbs, how many fats should they be eating, and what does that look like. Providing them specific examples of this is what a day looks like. These are some items for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Do you like to cook all of your meals or do you need something more convenient? Doing our follow-up blood testing, making sure that what we're doing nutritionally and supplement wise is working well for them. So as you mentioned, it's very comprehensive, but also very personalized. We need to be able to speak to you at least once a week or a couple times a week to make sure that we're answering your questions and guiding you appropriately. And most importantly, to developing a lifestyle, something that can be, we can do it for the next 3 months and help you reach your goals over the next 3 to 6 months. But it's something you have to be able to maintain forever, regardless of what your goals were.
Yeah, I think that's so important to try to get people's minds wrapped around is it's like, don't think of this like, oh, I'm just going to do this diet for like, 3 months or whatever, and then I'm going to be able to do whatever. We need to figure out ways where we can, like you said, make this more of a lifestyle. And maybe now that's the word that people are like getting stuck on, like, oh, I have to make this a lifestyle. Just like before it was like, oh, I have to do this diet. But think of it like in ways of, good ways. It doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice everything. It means how can we create a plan for you that is going to be something you're going to stick with, not something you're going to power yourself through for 3 months and then be like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
That's why people might lose the weight or might get rid of their issues, but then a year from now they're back in the same spot.
That's exactly it. And I tell all our clients, we live in Naples, Florida, so we're a very popular happy hour time location. And so, I tell them, oh, I'm not going to take your wine away, but I do need to know how much wine you're drinking so I can modify the rest of your day to account for that. And certainly, we'll make the healthier recommendations. But again, I'm not going to tell you to do something that you don't see yourself doing forever. And, you mentioned earlier on in our talk here that just because we do food elimination or food sensitivities doesn't mean we're avoiding these foods forever. We have to get to a point where we can heal your gut enough or get you to optimal to where then we can start reintroducing the foods or modifying. And I also tell everyone from the start is what you start out with here is not where you're going to be 6 months from now, because as we heal or as we get to a maintenance state where now we can maintain, we have to adjust for that. So where your nutrients will change again and the types of foods you're eating will change again.
Yeah, we've gotten so far away from like, the way our ancestors ate based on seasons and things that were available, because now you can just go to the grocery store and get whatever you want any time of year. And so
That's right.
I think so many people tend to fall into eating the same thing. I mean, even I'm guilty of that. Like I
Yeah.
just out of convenience sake, like I do, I try to rotate through things, but I find myself falling into that pattern of, oh my God, I've had the same thing for breakfast for like the last 6 months. I don't know.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And so that's when food sensitivities can develop. And sometimes it's just a matter of, okay, let's switch this up, introduce different things. And then in 3 months or 6 months, maybe you could introduce eggs, for example, like back into your diet.
That's exactly it. And same thing goes for our metabolism. The metabolism gets used to doing the same thing every single day for months and years. We have to have that confusion. We hear muscular confusion, right? In the gym, we can't do the same workout all the time. But the same thing goes for your metabolism. You have to have that metabolic confusion or the metabolic adjustment where you have the change and you're altering. We call our plan a flexible eating plan, right? You're not going to be strict and diligent 7 days a week for months on end. We can't do that. We have to have flexible eating. And that's why we go off of macronutrients, meaning that level of protein, carbs, fats, why we don't focus on calories, why we don't give you a set meal plan and say, here, eat this, good luck, because we have to have the ability to be flexible.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So what would you say is the primary goal of your practice?
And that's a challenging thing to answer, but if I had to summarize it, it's longevity. Our primary goal is to improve the quality of life. So not just adding years to your life, but quality years to your life. And so, for you, adding quality years of your life may be that you can continue to cycle for another 10 years versus another client is just to be able to get on the ground with their grandkid and get back up for the next 5 years. So it has to be based on their personal goals, but we want to add quality to you. And so if I had to, summarize it in one takeaway for the client or the individuals listening here, it's really question your providers, question yourself that you're seeing the right person to look further into your body. Are you being treated for a symptom, or are you being treated for the actual problem to fix the symptoms and to prevent you from having to use medications long term?
Yeah, for sure. It was so funny as you were saying, like, maybe you want to cycle or maybe you want to play with your grandkids. And I'm thinking Naples, Florida, people just want to play pickleball.
Pickleball, yes, I almost said that. But you're exactly right. I just had a client today I was talking with. She's up in the Cape, but coming back next week, and she's like, I already booked my pickleball lessons. Right.
Oh my God, it's so funny. It's getting crazy up there too, as well. Like, we go back and forth to Connecticut, and we've got friends that live in our complex that are from Rhode Island or Massachusetts or whatever, and it's booming up there too. So yeah, and that's the thing. I think people down here in Florida, they are more just make conscious, I guess, of how do I want my quality of life to be for the in my retirement, or for the last 20 years or whatever it might be. And they're more aware. I don't know whether it's just the weather, or we're out more, or you have the ability to be out more, or all those things probably, but I think people are definitely more conscious of it.
Absolutely.
So this has been awesome, Jenny. Thank you so much for all the amazing information. Again, people can learn more about you at www.bermanpt.com/wellness. And I want to thank you so much for all of your time and all the great information. And definitely people will be reaching out to you for sure.
Thank you so much. I had a great time here, and we'll be happy to talk with anybody that comes our way.
Awesome. Awesome. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time on the show, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I will see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.